hidden behind a line of tall trees. I watched the villagers gathered around a freshly dug grave. Some women cried openly. Others quietly wiped tears from their faces. The village pastor spoke gentle words about the kind woman everyone believed they had lost. Then my coffin was slowly lowered into the ground. I watched every handful of soil fall onto the wooden lid. I heard people whisper, "She was gone far too soon." Some prayed for my soul. Others comforted my family. Then I looked at my husband, Gideon, the man I had been married to for 6 years. He stood beside my grave with his hands behind his back. His face showed no anger, no sadness, no regret. He simply stared at the coffin as if he were watching another ordinary day pass by. Not a single tear rolled down his face. Before I tell you why I made the impossible choice to disappear, if you enjoy powerful stories that touch the heart and remind us how courage can change a life, please drop a comment, subscribe to Whisper Glow Tales, and join our family. Everyone believed I had died in a terrible accident, but the woman inside that coffin wasn't me. My name is Lindiwe. I wasn't born into a wealthy family. We lived in a small village where every season determined whether we had enough food to eat. When the harvest failed for 2 years in a row, my father borrowed money from Gideon. At first, he believed he would repay every cent after the next harvest, but the rains never came. The debt grew bigger. Interest piled upon interest. Soon, my father owed more money than he could ever repay. One evening, Gideon came to our house. I still remember the silence. No one smiled, no one spoke. My father couldn't even look me in the eyes. Finally, he broke the silence. "Lindiwe, I have no way of paying this debt." I thought he was asking for my forgiveness. Instead, he told me I would become the payment. Gideon was 20 years older than me. He wasn't asking me to marry him. The decision had already been made. It was an arranged marriage. My father believed he was saving our family. My mother cried for days, but no one asked what I wanted. The wedding happened only a month later. The entire village celebrated. People danced, people sang. They congratulated me for marrying one of the richest men in the district. Everyone called me lucky. No one knew that every smile on my face was hiding fear. As I stood beside Gideon exchanging vows, I wasn't walking toward my future. I was saying goodbye to the life I wanted. At first, Gideon treated me well. He bought me beautiful clothes. He filled our home with expensive furniture. People envied my life. He started deciding what I should wear. Then he decided where I could go, who I could speak to, and how long I could stay away from home. If I laughed while talking to a neighbor, he wanted to know why. If I smiled at someone in the village, he questioned me for hours. He kept every coin, every decision, every part of my life under his control. He never needed to raise his hand. His words were enough. His silence was enough. His control became the prison I lived inside every single day. Everyone outside our home believed I was living like a queen. Inside those walls, I was disappearing. The cheerful young woman who once dreamed of becoming a teacher slowly faded away. Every morning I woke up wondering what mistake I would make that day. I stopped laughing. I stopped singing while cooking. I stopped visiting the river where I used to collect water with my friends. Eventually, I stopped recognizing the woman staring back at me in the mirror. One rainy evening, I secretly left the house to take medicine to an elderly widow who lived alone near the river. I knew Gideon had forbidden me from leaving without his permission. But I couldn't ignore someone who needed help. The rain became heavier. The narrow path turned into slippery mud. I lost my footing. I fell down the riverbank. My head struck a large rock. Everything went dark. When I finally opened my eyes, I wasn't home. A kind nurse named Mama Thandi was cleaning the wound on my forehead. Beside her stood the man who had carried me from the river. They had saved my life. As I lay there recovering, Mama Thandi noticed the fear in my eyes. She gently asked, "Lindiwe, who are you so afraid of?" For the first time in 6 years, I told someone the truth. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she held my trembling hand, looked into my eyes, and quietly asked, "What if this was your chance to begin again?" I didn't understand what she meant. Until the following morning, that's when someone came running to the house with news that would change my life forever. When Mama Thandi told me everyone believed I was dead, I couldn't speak. She explained that during the night, a terrible fire had destroyed a small house in a nearby village. The woman inside had been burned so badly that no one could recognize her. Someone claimed they had seen me walking in that direction before the fire, by sunrise. The rumor had spread across the village. Everyone believed the woman who had died was me. Mama Thandi gently held my hand and said, "Lindiwe, sometimes life gives us a second chance in the most unexpected way. You can go back, or you can finally become the woman you've been afraid to be." That night, I didn't sleep. I thought about my mother, my father, my childhood friends, the little girl I used to be, the girl who dreamed of becoming a teacher, the girl who laughed without fear. Somewhere along the way, she disappeared. If I went back, everyone would celebrate because I was alive. But after the celebration, nothing would change. Gideon would take me home. His control would begin all over again. For the first time in 6 years, I made a decision for myself. I chose freedom. A few days later, hidden beneath a scarf, standing behind a line of tall trees, I watched my own funeral. I watched neighbors carry my coffin. I heard women singing farewell songs. My mother cried until she could barely stand. My father stood silently beside the grave. Every tear they shed broke my heart. Then I looked at Gideon. His face never changed. No sorrow, no regret, no love, only silence. In that moment, I stopped feeling guilty. As the last shovel of soil covered the coffin, I whispered goodbye, not to my family, not to my village, but to the frightened woman I had become. Mama Thandi took me to a village many hours away where nobody knew my name. I rented a tiny room with cracked walls and a leaking roof. At night, I cried myself to sleep. Not because I wanted to go back, but because healing is lonely before it becomes peaceful. Mama Thandi introduced me to an elderly tailor named Gogo Sarah. She patiently taught me how to sew. At first, my stitches were crooked. Some customers never returned. I wanted to give up, but Gogo Sarah smiled and said, "Cloth can be sewn again after it tears. So can a heart." Those words stayed with me. Months passed. My sewing improved. People began recommending my work to others. For the first time in years, people weren't seeing me as someone's wife. They were finally seeing me as Lindiwe. Soon I had more orders than I could finish. I bought my own sewing machine. Then I rented a small shop in the marketplace. The first time I unlocked that shop with my own key, I stood quietly in the doorway and cried. Not tears of sadness, tears of gratitude, because nobody had given me that life. I had built it myself. As my business grew, I began volunteering every Saturday at a shelter for abused women and children. I taught women how to sew, repair clothes, and earn an income. Some arrived with visible bruises. Others carried wounds no one could see. Whenever they asked if life could really get better, I would smile and say, "I once watched people bury my old life. Trust me, there is hope after pain." The children quickly became my greatest joy. We laughed together, read stories together, and sewed little dolls from leftover pieces of fabric. Watching them smile reminded me that broken beginnings don't have to become broken futures. One warm afternoon, while delivering school uniforms to the marketplace, I saw Gideon. Time seemed to stop. His face turned pale. His eyes widened with disbelief. He stared at me as though he had seen a ghost. Then he slowly took a step toward me. For years, I had imagined that moment. I thought I would demand answers. I thought I would ask why he stole my happiness. But when I finally stood before him, I realized something unexpected. He no longer had the power to hurt me. He was just another man walking through the market. I smiled politely, turned around, and continued walking toward the shelter where women and children were waiting for me. I never looked back. People still believe I faked my death to escape my husband. But the truth is different. I buried the frightened version of myself so the stronger woman inside me could finally live. Today, every woman who walks through those shelter doors reminds me why I survived. Not so I could hide forever, but so I could help others find the courage to begin again. If my story reaches someone who feels trapped, please remember this. Real love will never ask you to become smaller. It will never silence your dreams. And no matter how dark life feels today, there is always another chapter waiting to be written. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do isn't finding the strength to stay. It's finding the courage to walk away. Because the day you choose yourself is the day your new life begins.